Algebra I Honors, Lesson 3.8, Solving Equations and Formulas, and Lesson 3.9, Weighted Averages. So, first lesson's about solving an equation for a particular variable, which, I don't know, there's just no way to describe it. You just get the y alone. So, similar to solving an equation, we just subtract 3x from both sides. Then we divide by -4. We're more or less done at that point. One of the far and away most common mathematical mistakes that people make is now dividing the -4 into both pieces. So if we wanted to keep going, divide it here, and then divide it here. Here it says solve for a, so we're going to multiply by 2 on both sides. Divide by t squared. Notice how little I like my s's. They look a lot like my 5's. Both answers are good. Here it says get y alone. Multiply both sides by a. Minus 5x. A minus 5x. Keep going. I would pause these and try and do them yourself. Notice I flipped them over. Yes, you can do that. It's not a big deal. By the way, this is used a fantastic amount in science class, physics, chemistry, that sort of thing, so I would get very used to it very quickly. This is slightly different in that we have a variable on both sides. So I picked moving them left. I didn't have to. These are z's, not 7's. A lot of people get confused by that with me. Try and write my z's clearly. And you could have written it either way. A little tight on space. And last but not least, let's get C alone over here. That's our answer. So they'll give you specific ones, like here's the formula for the volume of a cylinder. And they'll say, find this, blah, blah, blah. You can always plug numbers in and solve it. In this case, we'll solve it for H. I'm just going to, well, I guess I will rewrite it. Going to be a little bit lazy and just divide everything out, and then again rewrite it with H on the left, which is fine. Symmetric property, I believe. Now they say, hey, now that you've got volume alone, pardon me, height alone, what's the height of a cylindrical swimming pool, yada, yada, yada. And I've noticed this before. I believe it's supposed to be 12 feet. 120 feet would be a pretty big radius for a pool. So height equals 1810 over pi pi times 12 squared. Now, in many cases, we leave this in terms of pi. In this one, we won't. Because it's an actual thing. We're looking for the height of the pool. I end up getting 4 feet. If you didn't do that, make sure you put parentheses around this when you put it in your calculator. 4-foot pool, 12-foot radius, that's actually not unusual. Now, one of the more challenging units we'll cover, what's a weighted average? Well, let's just imagine I have 3 classes. I have 20 people in one class, and they get 90% on their exams, and I have 30 people in another class, and they get 80% on their exams, and I only have 10 people in the last class, and they get 60% on their exams. I want to know what they all average. I could just say 90 plus 80 plus 60 and divide by 3, but that would not be a weighted average, because some classes have more than others. So I'd have to divide by 20 plus 30 plus 10. And you have to know what you're doing to make sure you put this in the calculator correctly. I'm doing that right now. And I get 80% as the average. So I can say, even though some kids get 60%, some classes average 60%, some classes average 90%, using a weighted average, I know what they all are. So that's what a weighted average is. You could solve some really nasty word problems with these, and it's very challenging. You have to be aware of what's going on. You have to read the question extremely carefully, and you probably have to read the question at a minimum 3 times. That's what I have to read. So if you're better than me, good for you, but I've got to read it 3 times. Assorted dried fruit sells for $5.50 a pound. How many pounds of mixed nuts should be mixed with 10 pounds of dried fruit to obtain a trail mix that sells for $4.95 per pound? So here's my dried fruit, which first few times I read this question, I got a little lost. So weighted average, 550 times 10 pounds gives me a cost. Plus, don't know how many pounds, $4.75 per pound. That gives me a cost equals $4.95 times 10 plus X. So my costs all lined up. This cost plus this cost equals that total cost. So we do a little math, 55 Gonna move things over this way. I guess I do have to write it out. And I get 0.2x equals 5.5 divided by 0.2. Tells me I need 27.5 pounds of mixed nuts. LBS means pounds. No, I don't know why. It's been a long time. So that's, an example of using a weighted average. It's goofy. It's very, very goofy. It takes a lot of getting used to. Chemistry experiment calls for 30% solution of copper sulfate. You get 40 millimeters of 25% solution and a ton of 60%. So how much 60% do you need? Well, 40 milliliters times 0.25 plus X milliliters of 0.6. Not happy with my handwriting today. Apologize. 0.6 is going to equal 40 plus X times 0.3. This gets you 10. Equals 12 plus 0.3x. Move things left to right, up, down, over, under. 0.3x equals 2. Divide by 0.3. X equals 6 2/3 milliliters. And that's it. I mean, it's a pain. I'd recommend starting to pause the recording and do some of these problems yourself because they are challenging. Very challenging. Anthony's drive to his aunt's house. The traffic's light. He drove 45 miles per hour in 1 hour. Velocity equals distance over time. So he went 45 miles, 1 hour. Return trip took him 2 hours. What was his average speed? Well, now he went 45 miles in 2 hours. You might think, well, that's it. Just add them up. I'm done. That gives me average speed. Well, no, I got to divide. How many total hours? This is like the average example I did all the way up above. So we get 45 plus 22.5, 67.5 over 3. Something is wrong. I did this wrong. So I have to fix this. Distance over time, distance over time. My bad. Showing you just a little bit how difficult these are. 45 miles per hour, plus I know he was going 22.5 miles per hour. He was doing this for 2 hours. He was doing this for 1 hour. Divided by 3, and there's probably a better way to do this. Gives us 90 over 3, meaning he averaged 30 miles per hour. Yeah, I don't like the way that worked out. I would definitely do it differently. I would have said, well, he went 90 miles, and it took him 3 hours. That's a much better way to do the problem. Notice there's a different way to solve these. That always freaks students out. They expect one set way, not have to think about it. Well, it's not going to work that way. Velocity equals distance over time. 2 helicopters take off, opposite directions. One's going 350, one's going 325. How many hours will it be? 2,025 kilometers apart. Well, I want the distances to add up to that. So I know that if I multiply both sides by t, I get Vt equals d. So 350 times t plus 325 times t equals 2025. $675 times t equals 2025. Divided by 675, t equals 3 hours. And you might say, well, I don't see the weighted average, and I would say, yes, I agree with you. In this problem, I cannot find the weighted average myself. I've done it several times, and I can solve it. I just don't see how. it uses weighted averages. It uses math that you have not covered yet. So if you want to try this, go ahead. I'm not going to. But the answer is the original speed is 40 miles per hour. And the original time is 7 hours. The faster speed, of course, is plus 5, 45 miles per hour. And the faster time is 6 hours because it took one less. So there's your answers. If you can figure out how to do that, good for you. If not, don't worry about it. A plane makes a trip from Acton to Banville at 800 kilometers per hour and the return at 1,000 kilometers per hour. It takes a half hour less. Well, we talked about this. Velocity equals distance over time, and therefore distance equals velocity times time. These are both going the same distance. It's going 800 kilometers per hour times some t. And that equals 1,000 kilometers per hour times t minus 1/2 because it does it in half hour less. Off we go. So, it takes them 2.5 hours. Did I answer the question? No, I did not. 800 times 2.5. So let's go back to this to find the distance. Or you can just look at it as this. Equals 2,000 miles. Big part of these problems is actually answering the question that was asked. It can be very tricky. A lot going on, hard to figure it all out. So, one last one. Bus travels 297 miles in 5 hours. You might think it went at a constant speed, so you have to carefully read the question. I had a little trouble with it. Due to construction and traffic, the last hour, it had to go half its original speed. So now find how many miles the bus traveled at its original speed. So, one more time. Velocity equals distance over time. Distance equals velocity times time. So we have the original velocity times 4 hours plus half that velocity times 1 hour equals 297 miles. Four v plus half v equals 297. 9 halves v equals 297. Multiplied by 2 over 9. We get the original velocity of 66 miles per hour. How many miles does it travel at that velocity? Well, we know it went for 4 hours, so 66 times 4 gives us 264 miles. There's a lot going on here. Play with it. Don't stress it. Yeah, you'll see some mixture problems in this course. They will not pop up on the ACT or in Algebra 2, so just get good at them here. And don't worry about it too much. Good luck and happy mathing.